Welcome back to the Corporate Burnouts podcast. It's our first in-person episode, and
I know.
so excited.
I'm so excited, but what I'm more excited about is that it's also our first time with a guest. So we want to welcome our very first guest to the Corporate Burnouts podcast, Miss Bre K.
What's up, everyone?
So Bre K comes to us as an incredible businesswoman and entrepreneur, but you had quite the corporate experience too. So we want to hear about your corporate experience. Not too much. We want to hear why you left. We just want to hear your story.
Sounds good. I'm ready. I'm ready to tell you.
Give it to us.
Well, I'm Bre K. I'm a speaker. I'm an author, an operational strategy and efficiency consultant. And when I say that, I always tell people it's just like I'm like vanilla ice. If you got a problem, I'll solve it inside of your business. So I went out on my own. Yeah, I went out on my own a couple of years ago, but I have 22 years in corporate America. I'm actually a fourth generation small business owner or entrepreneur.
Oh, nice.
Love that.
And so like I learned everything I know from my family. Both sides of my family actually all own their own companies. Yeah. So I was raised this way, which is what made me go into corporate, ironically, because there's a lot of ups and downs in business ownership. And so I was a product of Saturday mornings. Like we would be in front of the cartoons and my dad, this was back in the day. I'm dating myself totally. But this was back in the day when we had to like lick envelopes and stamps and like seal it all up. But we used to do that on Saturday mornings and we would do like guerrilla marketing. My dad taught us how to go around neighborhoods and like knock on doors and talk to people about my mom's side of the family owned performing arts studios. And I'm a singer and I danced for 20 years. And then my dad's side of the family owned independent insurance agencies. And so like, I know a lot about insurance and a lot about performance arts and things like that. I went into corporate America because I was like, I don't want it to be so drastic.
Yeah, maybe you wanted a 9-to-5 instead of a all the time job.
Yeah, no, that was totally it because my parents were like on all the time. There would be times when my mom, I'm sorry, Mom, for saying this, but there would be times when my mom would be like yelling at us and then all of a sudden the phone would ring and she'd be like, hello, may I help you? And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah.
What is happening? I'm like, what is happening?
So how come you like people on the phone better?
You know what though? We all have the phone voice. You learn that as
is
an
a true
adult.
story. Yeah. That is a true story. Adults have phone voices and my kids probably think the same thing about me, but that was a real thing. And so my mom worked all the time and my dad raised us a lot at night because my mom would have classes. Mm-hmm. And so their schedules lended to being able to raise us from home. We never went to daycare. We were with my parents all the time.
Yeah. What's it like to have no trauma?
She's like, didn't I say that?
Tell you really did me in as a child, so I can't relate.
So what's funny about that is that I have a twin brother, and my brother and I went to daycare. I'm going to say for like one day, and I remember it. And I remember my mom picking us up and us like never going back.
Never, ever.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened. Maybe something happened to him and I just didn't know. But yeah, so like we were able to be with our family all the time, which is really challenging when you're in corporate America because it's like you have to decide. And that makes it really challenging as a mother. When my kids were little, the last corporate job that I worked for a third-party medical billing company. So I have 22 years in the medical field. I went to tech school and got my certification, like 400 competency hours to work inside of a hospital. Mm-hmm. So I worked in an ER for a long time. I worked in the insurance world, and then I went and worked for third-party billing. And so what's fascinating about that is that the company looked great on paper, right? Yeah. As most companies do. Then when you get on the inside, you realize that every single person that has a VP is in a C-suite position is actually related to the person who owns the company. So it's all her sons, all her daughter-in-laws, her nephews, her cousins, everyone.
Lots of nepotism going on.
So much nepotism that it is, you really don't understand until you're at that level what really goes on. Yeah. And I was in my mid 30s, I'm going to say. I'm 43 now, and I was in my like upper 30s when I was there. And there were all these little kids running around like in their early 20s we'd be at these meetings, and the next thing you know, the owner would come through, something would happen, she's publicly shaming people in the meeting, and then she would call in her son,
the new VP of whatever at 22 years
whatever.
old.
and she would say, do you think that this is appropriate? Do you think that they messed up? Do you think that and he would be like, yeah.
Tell me this is how you left corporate America.
It's totally how I left corporate America.
That is not.
Listen,
that is not
these girls, these guys and girls. I mean, I kept tissue at my desk because these people, we would come out and I'd be like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? Like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. Like, we would have meeting after meeting after meeting just to call someone out on their bullshit, on their BS. Mm-hmm. You know, like,
you can say bullshit here.
Okay, like bullshit. Yeah. Just it was total bullshit. So they would bring us into meetings just to publicly point out someone's shortcomings. And the person, you could feel, it was disgusting. Yeah. You could feel that the person would just be like shrinking in their seat, totally ashamed, and they would cry openly in the meeting.
And somebody, I'm guessing the woman in charge here, like seemingly like getting off on this.
Getting off on it.
This is
loving watching someone else shrink and making them what is that doing to you inside? You are disgusting.
Mm-hmm. None of us were allowed to be friends with each other on Facebook or in any kind of online forum. One of my best girlfriends who used to work there, she finally left.
Thank God for her. Obviously.
Oh my God. It was crazy. Like, we were best friends and no one knew.
Because you had to hide.
We had to hide it.
Because it's a cult-like situation. They have the division has to be there so that there's the competition and the no sharing notes, right?
Insanity. Mm-hmm. And so we would leave these meetings and I'm like, listen, it's not really like this. I don't understand. Like, you guys, and they're like, but I make so much money. I don't know where I could go. I don't know where I can work that I can make this much money. And I'm really scared to leave. And that's exactly where they want you. Mm-hmm. They own you.
Yep. It's like a man. He's like, you're not pretty enough. No one would want you if you left me.
Oh my God. Know? There were times that I would be up till, because they originally hired me in to create a call quality program for them. So I actually came in, I created a call quality program because their customer service was like 73%. And in 6 months, I took it from a 73 to a 96% and with the program that I implemented. So that's what I really do in like my day-to-day now. Is just finding problems and bringing solutions. But at the time, they were like, well, we need really good client managers to come in and manage these places like Cedars-Sinai. And so we managed gigantic hospital systems and also outpatient surgical centers across the country. And so we were doing numbers for these massive corporations outside of our state where they had different hours. So they were calling us. There would be times that even my girlfriend too, we'd be up at 3 a.m. running numbers for people. Like, it was,
you won't catch me dead up at 3 a.m.
It was
work ever again.
Total insanity. And when my kids were like, at the time, I want to say that my youngest was like 5 and my oldest was like 8. And I was like, what am I doing? I remember I was at a soccer game and I was in the car and I was taking a call, and my youngest is on the playground. So I'm watching him on the playground, and then I'm watching the other one play soccer, and I'm just like in my head, and this person is bitching and complaining about something. And I'm just like,
I gotta go.
What am I doing? What am I doing? And like, you have this epiphany. And at a moment, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. It's sucking your soul to live. And every day I would go there and be like, why am I doing this? Why am I giving myself to a place that hates people? Actually.
Yeah, it doesn't give a shit about you for sure.
Actually. And it was just a moment in my life where I would call my bestie. She's a therapist.
What a perfect bestie. We need to add a therapist to our friend group. Like, our basket is not full.
Yeah, we try and
if you want to be our friend,
therapize each other, but neither of us are qualified.
We need a real
the blind leading the blind over here.
Listen, it's about perspective. If you can see into your window and you can see into hers,
we do. We help each other figure out what we could have done better. Like it's like reflection. We do a lot of reflection. Well, why 100%. Did you do that? What made you think that was a good idea? Why do we do the things that we do? And then
so that we can reframe it and do better next time.
So 100%. We do get somewhere, but it can be better. There's probably
better strategies that our new therapist friend that we've yet to meet
that's right.
will bring to us.
We have a contact form on the website. Just
fill it out.
Send us.
I do love the perspective you're sharing from your corporate experience. I find it very interesting that you weren't allowed to be friends. We had a very opposite. I mean, we worked for a people company that put people first, and our team became our absolute best friends, like not just in the work life, but like in life in general. But even having that, like, it doesn't come without all of the stress, and it didn't come without the moments of sitting and working when you should be focused on your kid playing soccer and, being in the moment of your life, but you're sharing those moments. Completely different. But I do find it interesting that you kind of, regardless of the type of situation that you're coming from in corporate, you do have those epiphanies where you wake up and go, why am I giving these precious moments of my life? Because there are only so much of that, right?
True story.
Giving away these precious moments to a company. And it doesn't even matter if it's a good one, a bad one, a successful one, a failing one. It doesn't matter.
Great boss or
you're
whatever.
Giving away your time.
Yeah.
And you have to for work. You have to for work so much. But I've definitely learned in leaving corporate that I'm pretty stingy with my time. Like when it's time to work, okay, fine. But when it's not,
I realized too, like in just the observation of growing up in an environment where I was surrounded by solopreneurs, right? And micro teams and things like that. My parents had teams of, my dad, it was his family. My mom, she actually had a team. And so witnessing all of that was just really incredible to understand why boundaries are so important. And I think when you go out as a solopreneur, you're bootstrapping it, you're like doing whatever it takes to climb the proverbial mountain of whatever that achievement is for you, for yourself, when you own a business, to get there and to make it happen. And, you somewhere along the line, throw away all your boundaries to do it. And then you dial it back and you're like, okay, wait, I went too hard on that. And now I got to dial it back.
So far in the opposite direction of where you had been.
Yeah. And then you need to make sure that you have
yourself again.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really big thing. So I left the company. I saved up every single cent that I could. I left the company. And my girlfriend was like, do you want to just come work for me? She owned a sign company, and we started a branding company, and we worked together for several months. And then, I was kind of just had some time, and my other girlfriend, Chelsea, who she is in Cottleville, and she owns 7 businesses, and her and I had lunch together, and she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have a receptionist. And she goes on maternity leave in 3 days, and I have no one. And I'm like, well, what is it, 9 weeks or something? I'll do it. Yeah. So I went to work for her, and she owns a really amazing wedding event venue space. And that's how I got started, helping them on the side, implement all these strategies, processes, procedures, helping them hire people. They had no handbook. There were things happening. And I'm like, well, where are all your procedures? That is it has to be a machine, and it has to pump out high volume. And so I'm like, we have to get everybody on the same page. When you have people sign up for events, there has to be a process, it's an 18-step process that I created for them to go from the call where they want the event and then to the event. And so it's I realized in my time with her, and actually just being constantly, I've only ever worked for female CEOs since I was 18.
That's pretty incredible.
Which is so, it's like an anomaly.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, I realized that over time, like I have only ever worked for female CEOs. And so I'm constantly off the shoulder of these women who are like crushing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can do this. I know how to do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
And I did what any normal person would do. The very next week, I quit my job and I went out on my own. And it's been 2.5 years and I'm having the time of my life. And it's just been such an incredible transition to do your own thing, but also hold yourself accountable for your own success. I think that's the biggest downfall sometimes. It's like, we're like, yeah, I'm doing this thing, but you still have to hold timelines and boundaries and things like that are important to get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
You know,
well, to not lose yourself in the process of getting where you want to go.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about, it's a big deal to us to help people get through their corporate experience and be better on the other side of it. Whether that's to dig in and just set your boundaries and figure out your balance and all that stuff, or you leave. And when people leave, they can either go work for a small business or a smaller company, a different company that maybe treats their people better than some companies, or you can start your own business, right? And you've done all of those things. And obviously being an entrepreneur is your favorite so far, right? But how much better was it to work for that small business for 3.5 years than working for the devil woman at that company? I mean, because she sounds like somebody who I don't want to run into ever.
Yeah. I mean, they're just so different. When things are on a smaller scale, I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar business, that small family business. So, you know, when you're going from a space of 300 employees, there's a lot, it's like herding cats. There's a lot that has to happen. And when I got there, there were 0 written policies. So like everyone was just basically playing the telephone game to train each other. Like the smartest person in the room or the smartest person in the department or the person who'd been there the longest was training people. And so working for a small family, it was so much more intimate and so much more of an experience. Like you're involved in things that are actually making effect to change. So like they're saying like, we're going to build this building over here. And like, I'm the person that's helping them schedule appointments, or I'm taking all the receipts and like I'm a part of that. Or like we're in meetings and it's 5 of us and they're like, so what do we think about this event? Or what are some other events that we could add that would be really great? Like we're having brainstorming sessions that are actually, you can see from start to finish.
Moving the needle.
Moving the needle.
One little piece and staying in your lane.
Instead of having 87 meetings about the same damn thing that you're just like, didn't we just talk? Like, am I losing my mind? Like, did we just talk about this?
Have a meeting to plan a meeting.
Follow-up email that we should have.
Oh my God. Right.
Another meeting.
When meetings just could have been emails. Like I lived that every day. I mean, there were days where I had 7 hours of meetings out of an 8-hour day. And you're just like, is this, am I really
supposed to work?
Yeah. That was Fridays for us. Like
at 3 a.m.
Conference call after conference call. Oh my gosh. It was just like, when are we going to do the actual
And then you
work?
end your day with your to-do list, but you're supposed to be going into the weekend.
Right.
But now you have a to-do list.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of that could have been an email. We're going to have to make a shirt about that. That meeting could have been an email. I'm sure that there are lots of shirts online.
Exists, but we'll have our own.
Okay. So when we're talking about, the, what you came up doing and what you do for small businesses now, or not all small businesses.
Right.
But it's about the efficiency of teams, right? Figuring out processes. I really want to talk about your rules of engagement, okay? Because this is really important, okay? When we were on a team, all right, we had an excellent team, and we've talked about this before, and
we won't stop either.
It's just going to be a love letter to our old team, just over and over.
I love that for you.
Podcast is for.
I love that for you guys.
Yes, we had to go still, and most of them did too. There's just one left right now, but we had an excellent team, but we had to set a lot of boundaries. We had to have our own set of rules for our team to make it was kind of easy for us to make it work because we just loved the shit out of each other.
Right.
And we respected each other and we were all on the same page. But we also were all super strong-willed.
Yes.
Big personalities.
Yeah. And everybody had an opinion about everything, right? If we were talking about something, there was not anyone to be like, no, I don't really have anything to say about that. It was all like, okay, when's it going to be my turn to tell what I have to say about that? And then we have all the data collected and now we can start to make decisions or move forward. But there wasn't any pushovers. There wasn't anybody who had.
But there were. We did have some of those people on our team. But if you think back, those people weren't on the team for very long.
Yeah, they didn't.
The core group.
They can't survive.
Yeah. Well, and some of them, left for other reasons and things, but the root of it was, I don't fit here. I don't like, my voice isn't loud enough because you guys are so much, or I don't have the confidence in what I want to say. So I'm just going to let you kind of run with it. And there were people that just didn't fit.
Yeah. Or as we were we were always involved with adding people to our team, and they would interview with the entire team, and then they would spend time with us. And they would, we want to know how you feel about that. We'll get back to that. Whether you think that's a good idea, but there were people who didn't make it onto the team because they didn't keep up with they weren't going to be,
a cohesive fit. The relationship was really important. Like, I don't know, when I think back to our boss at that time, I know that she did that intentionally. Let, prospective new people on the team spend time with the entire team to see how everybody was going to mesh. But it's like, is it a big deal if you're not going to be best friends?
I don't think it was completely about that because
I know it wasn't completely, but I know that was part of it. And the fact that she was able to bring in a group of people that ended up being really close friends. Like, I find that to be kind of magical. Yeah. And I don't know if that was strategy or just pure luck for us.
Well, what I like about that is that it gives everybody a chance to kind of see if they're a really good fit prior to making a commitment. But also that's why you can do like 90-day trial periods with someone when you bring them on. There's personality tests that you can do with people.
But we did all of that stuff. And I think that was part of it too, that nobody even made it into that interview process if their personality test didn't line up.
And there's a magic that occurs when you have people who are vibe. Like when you have a team of people who are like, let's crush this, and you're vibing in the same direction. Like, you're unstoppable. I mean, in my opinion, 100%. The caveat to that is that you end up having a lot of the same type of people, and there's not enough dynamic variety. So every team has to have 4 personality components to it in order for it to work successfully. Every person has all 4 of them, but it's just a matter of whose is stronger. So like, I'm an influencer. And so like, girl, I could tell you for 12 hours why it's a great idea that we do this, because I can influence you to think that. You have to have strategic people who the strategy and like the how of how we're going to get is exactly what we're going to do. Then you have to have an executor, which is a person who actually says, let's do this, let's go there, let's do this, let's start here. That's the person who's gonna the get shit done person. And then you have an analyzer, someone who's like, let me gather all this data and let me just look at it all. And let me just see if that's really a good
kind of person.
Well, like a finance person.
Labeled everyone on our team.
But it is it's why it worked, because
you had that. Right. But so that's the importance of having variety on a team. And I think you could get into like a little bit of a dangerous situation when you discount someone that just doesn't fit in right away, because we had a person on a team that I worked on who was an analyzer, and, they're like engineer brains, like they're totally numbers focused. They're like finance people, dry personality, like, no, but then necessary. And that it's just you got to find that magic. So Yeah. I think that as long as you have those 4 pieces to the team, like it's going to be successful.
Yeah.
You got to have
So
that.
smart. I've never heard it like listed out that way.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
I do want to have you go into
Yes.
the rules of engagement, because I think that is so important, because we'll say we worked really well together.
Mhm.
And we had unspoken rules,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of teams who are not like running on all cylinders right now.
Mm-mm.
And how do you bring those rules in and get people all to figure it out, right? So
Yeah.
And be on board with following
yes,
the rules.
yes. So why don't you give us the first rule of engagement?
So the first
for a team?
rule, so when you're running a meeting, there are times where I come into companies and they just cannot, one person's talking to one person and then that person goes and says something to someone else and nobody's meeting collectively to have a powwow, if you will,
Mhm.
about everyone getting the same information at the same time. So that's one thing that I see.
Mhm.
Or you're having so many meetings and nothing's getting done.
Yes.
And so the importance of having rules of engagement is just to set the tone.
Mhm.
So the tone is, the number one rule is all information that is shared is feedback. Feedback is neither positive nor negative. It is just information. And so
Mhm.
when someone says, I really didn't like the way you did that, Mandy, it's just information. Don't
Mhm.
take it personal. It's super challenging because a lot of people pour their heart and soul into things, into projects, into creation of something. And then when people don't like it,
And now you're
that's
like,
a
why do you hate me?
personal attack.
Yeah. I
And
don't
so-
like it because I made it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's not what she said.
No.
No.
And so first, just knowing that all information that is shared is feedback is just, there's no charge to it. There's no negative charge to it. And to just keep it neutral. And then there's kind of 2 types of feedback. There is unsolicited feedback, which is like, I don't really like that shirt.
I don't really care.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you're
Although
like,
we're
"Bitch, mind your business."
the denim
Yeah.
twins today.
I was gonna say,
But
you do like my shirt.
I do
You're
like a
wearing
shirt.
it.
I do like it. And then solicited. So it's important to ask permission to give feedback,
Yeah.
because a person has to be open to hearing it.
Mhm.
Because guess what? If I just start going on like, well, you could have done this different, or how many times have you been a part of something where someone has just randomly come up to you and they're like, this could have been different, or I had they're complaining to you about things that could be improved.
Yeah.
And you may not be in a space to hear that.
Mhm.
And so it's important to say, can I give you some feedback on that? Yeah, like I'm in, let's go. And then you give the feedback. It's just information. And then you decide if you want to use the feedback or not. So feedback is just information. That's rule number 1.
Yeah. So before you go into rule number 2, I have a really hard time with unsolicited feedback. So I would always, when I would get myself in the mindset of like, whenever I would do a big presentation or something, I would get in the habit of always asking for feedback, right? Because then I was in the mindset of that it's time for me to receive the feedback. I think I did a good job, or I don't, regardless of what the situation. But if it comes to me unsolicited, I am not receiving it the same way. I just won't. Like, I know that about myself.
Yeah.
I'll be like, what just happened? But if I just flip the script and I go, I am in charge of this.
That's right.
And I'm ready for whatever they have to say, because all of these people who would give me feedback care about me. So I know that they're not trying to rip me to shreds, but regardless, I would still feel defensive if I didn't ask for it myself. Or like you said, if someone didn't say, hey, I have a little feedback on your presentation, it gives me time, that little bit of time to flip my mindset.
To digest. But let's be real. Some people, some motherfuckers need to work on their delivery.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some
And
people.
sometimes I'm the motherfucker.
Listen, I'm just going to say some people just need to work on their delivery.
Yeah.
Like, we're all out here, right? And we're all just, especially if you're business owners or your friends, like you're just trying to make the person better and you want to see them succeed. And so giving feedback is part of that. But listen, they did not ask you for your feedback. Just keep it until they're ready. That's a you thing. You just have the urge that you want to tell a person, no, ma'am.
You have to do it. You have to do it with love. And if you don't come at giving feedback from a place of love, then you're like, you kind of have the wrong intentions to start
Ego.
with.
Yeah, you're
If
just
I
a jerk.
If
Yeah.
I just want to point out to you what you should be doing better because it makes me feel good because I'm pointing out your flaws, like I need to really check myself on that. But if I'm coming at it from a place of, I want to help you improve because I see potential in you.
Right.
Here are a couple of things that I noticed that will help you. And I think that, like, from the feedback giver's perspective, if you can set your heart right before you give the feedback, your delivery will fall in line.
Totally.
100%.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Feedback is just such a touchy thing. But if you do it right and you are very conscious of how you're giving feedback and when, you know, that's the magic right there.
It can be so powerful.
It's so powerful.
I love that.
And then the second rule is the 10% rule. So every 10% of every idea is a good idea. And so when we're in meetings and you're like brainstorming or like people are popping off and saying different things about like what they chiming in, you know, I say popping off, it's not really, they're chiming in, you know, like what happens a lot that I see is, well, we've already done that, or we've tried that already. We're not, like, it immediately gets shut down. And a person needs time just to like spitball. So like if they may say something and they may go, you know, for a couple of minutes and then they're like, all right, this is my idea. Your first response should be, what I like about that idea is. And when you say it that way, you're finding, as a person in the room, the 10%, that is like, that what I like about about that is this. Okay, then you take this 10% and you build off of that. And then pretty soon you have 100% idea and everyone in the room has collectively come up with it. And you know, you have to know when to call it, you know, like you have to know when to fold if it's not happening that day, but you know, you can get a lot accomplished if you stick to that kind of positive mindset of like, yeah, that I could see why that's great. And using that 10% piece.
In our world, we called that the ugly baby.
Yes.
When
I've heard of that.
It's from a book, and I can't remember what book we got it from.
It's the Pixar book. It's the
I don't remember what it's
Discovery
called.
Inc. or
something Inc. We'll look it up. It is from a book, but every idea starts as an ugly baby. So don't feel the need to cut down somebody. We know it's an ugly baby. Okay?
Right.
Don't call my baby ugly.
Right.
I already know.
Find what you do like about my baby.
Yes.
Help me make it pretty.
It will be pretty.
Right.
Yes. It will be a pretty baby.
Very interesting. I love this. And I think that's really, really important. I am curious, before you tell us the third rule, I need to know how many rules there are.
3.
Oh, okay, cool. I love that. I was like, how many do I have to remember? Okay, cool. What is the third rule?
So the third rule is, it's not the person, it's the process.
This is the best rule to me, I think, because
it's the meat and potatoes, y'all.
Yes, I love it. Keep going.
So I really stand on this foundationally as in my business. You know, we are so focused on blaming the person that made the mistake versus looking at the system that they're inside of and what's broken about what they're doing. So it has nothing to do with the person. It actually has to do with the process that's supporting what the person is doing. And so when you come into a space and you're like, well, she didn't hire this person right. We have no paperwork. We have nothing. We don't have anything to stand on. Like, we have to start and they don't know what they're doing. Okay, show me the process. Show me where on paper. Now, like, that's old school. Like, show me on the computer.
Show me on the computer.
Show me what, show me where it says what the step by step process is to onboard a person. Show me that, because clearly
there's not one.
It's broken or it's missing. A lot of companies have old stuff that they made a long time ago that now 10 years later hasn't been adapted or changed.
Do it differently, but
they do it different.
Change the system.
Technology comes into play. Like, you really have to adapt. That's an ongoing thing. Process always is evolving, is always ever evolving. And the minute that there's so much blame culture that happens inside of corporations.
Mhm.
So if you are a person who works for a company where everyone's like, Sally's a bad person because Sally messed this up and Sally is going to get a demotion.
Mhm.
It's like, well, do we have a system that supports what Sally's doing?
Yeah.
Like,
is it a really
Well, she shouldn't she shouldn't even be able to mess up. Really, they shouldn't be able to get to this part if
Right.
they haven't, turned in all of their paperwork or whatever it is.
Because if it's not Sally, it's going to be me. It's going to be the
Yeah.
next person, the person after that, the person after that. The problem never changes if you don't change the system that's broken.
Right.
And so that is a really, when we want to start in meetings, get like, well, I thought you were going to, like in a very loving but poignant way, like, well, so-and-so said they were going to handle that. And it's like, okay, well, that's another thing that we talk about, like the handoff. When there are too many handoffs in a process,
Mhm.
the handoff is right where.
Yeah, that's the breaking point.
Break
That
points,
is where when you pass the baton,
Mhm.
that is when the baton falls to the ground.
That's right.
Yes.
It's the
Mhm.
only possible
That's right.
point
So
to have
you
a
try to
breakdown.
minimize the amount of times you're passing the baton
Mhm.
and make sure that every step of the way is clear, and can just support the pass.
Mhm.
So we really spend a lot of time in meetings just focusing on like, okay, show me that process. Like something went wrong, show me the process.
Mhm.
Let's look at this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, right here is where the gap is. This is where we missed it. So
Mhm.
it doesn't say that. It's not clear. So let's write that in. And then problem
Weird,
solved.
you don't have that problem anymore.
It's so weird how efficient your meetings are when you just remove the heat off of everything. It's no one's fault.
Mhm.
Everything, 10%,
let's just fix it.
10% is a good idea. And it's just feedback. We're just
Mm-hmm.
here in a room sharing stuff and we're trying to figure it out. And basically when you come at it like that, it is astounding what you can get accomplished. And then the team feels so much better.
It takes the
Mhm.
power dynamics out of it, which
Whoa.
takes the
Yes.
anxiety out of the room,
Mhm.
which takes the defensiveness out of the room. And while I might have been somebody who dropped the ball,
Mhm.
I don't have to shut down in defensiveness or
Protect
shut
yourself.
down in anxiety because
Yeah.
I'm in survival mode over
Right.
here. I can actually be a part of the solution
Right.
because I'm welcome at the table because you're not shaming me.
And I always say that like nobody comes to work to screw it all up every day.
No.
Nobody.
No.
You want to come to work and feel good about what you're
That
doing and go
sucks.
home. Yeah, that sucks.
Mhm.
So confidence is a huge player in like creating systems and having things outlined. You want to go and be like, oh, I'm going to do these 5 things today and I'm going to do it exactly like this. And cool, check mark. I did it. Go
Mhm.
me.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
This is
So-
very interesting when you talk about processes and procedures and stuff. And
Mhm.
while in the world that we came from, there were, but like in our job and our role, there was so much autonomy
Yeah.
over like, I mean, you do it however you want to. The job has to be done. You need to do a good job, but there's
Mhm.
not really any rules per se about how it gets done. Yet we're all going to be compared against each other, but there's no way it's like you're killing it over here, but I don't really know how you're doing it. I can go spend time with you and watch it, but there's
Mhm.
really no it's not even playing field because nobody's doing everything the same way.
Mm-mm.
And while I loved that aspect of our role because I got to do things my own way and I had the autonomy,
Mhm.
I also think that it held me back in some ways. And I think it held a lot of other people back in that way because you had to figure out your own way instead of just being
Yes.
told like, this is how
Here's
we
the
do
best
this
way.
job. This is the very
Mhm.
best way. Adjust it as needed, but this is the ground
The
rules.
playbook.
Yeah.
And we
You have
would
no
have
playbook.
ran with it,
Right.
because we did like
Because we
to
would
make
have
our
believed in
own
it.
stuff and,
Mhm.
but if this is the way that it needs to be, I mean, we worked for a corporation, there's plenty of things like that. But when it came to coaching people, there was a lot of do it how you see fit.
Mhm.
And so we spent a lot of time probably recreating the wheel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Oh, a
and
lot
I'm
of it,
sure that a lot of balls got dropped. I'm sure that I'm sure.
Mhm. We
yeah,
made
we
life
could've-
harder than it had to be.
There's a
Yes.
learning curve to that.
Mhm.
When you step into a role and you have like someone who's mentoring you with a process in line, that's the fast track
Mhm.
to efficiency and to you fully being able to step into your role and understanding, okay, I do it like this. And then you're just practicing literally to get to be the best. But when you come in and they're like, hey, listen, you just create. Okay. You just create, babe. You do you. And then you do that. And you're like, is this right? Like, is this really working? Like, how come they're crushing it and I'm not? What's happening? It lends itself to all this self-doubt and self-deprecating. Like, the self-talk is not nice because you're just like, I don't know. And then insert competition. Competition. So competition is good to a degree. But when you get like high competitive people, it's like you're cutthroat. Like you're like, I made $1 million today. Did you? I got like, you're just, wait, what?
I don't suck. You don't have to put me down like
exactly.
that.
So then you're creating this hierarchy of like, I don't suck and you do.
Yeah.
And that can be dangerous. If it gets out of control
there. Cause that's the other thing that I find you cannot have an efficient team if you don't trust each other. And that is why we had a great team, because we really did trust each other. We trusted, we always say we assume the positive. Like we always assumed that everything was coming from this very positive place.
Yes.
And so then you were allowed to trust, because we knew that nothing was coming as an attack, and nobody was coming around the other side with a backhanded
shank you in your kidneys.
And nobody was failing the team or failing themselves or whoever on purpose. Nobody's dropping the balls because they want to look stupid or to let down their team. So trusting that if something wasn't going right, that there's an issue that maybe I can help you with versus being like, you're the issue.
That was never going to be said. And mostly
we just
because
like agreed to hold each other up, hold hands, and we all succeed together or we go down together. There's only as strong as the weakest link. So find that and let's all gather around.
And you're hugging it out and kumbaya in the meantime, because that's a successful team. That's what it takes. You have to have trust. It's a cornerstone of every relationship, even your personal ones. If you don't have trust, like, what are we doing? I mean, that is the biggest piece to trusting someone on a team, like, especially if they're new or something like that. When you have a dynamic where everyone who's worked there has worked there for 15 years, and then there's one person who comes in and is like the new kid on the block, they tend to want to put you on an island over here because you're the kid who's seeing everything with clear eyes from an outsider's perspective.
But they're actually where the magic comes in, because they have a perspective that we can't have because I'm stuck in the mud.
Right.
And you're not.
Right.
So
but try telling those people that it's really challenging. You have to be so strategic. And I was going to say careful, but that's not the word. It's really strategic. You have to be strategic in how you bring your ideas to the table. That is like a family heirloom, basically. Like, you can't just come into the table and be like, yo, make space for me because here I am. It has to be a gentler approach, and also needing their buy-in is critical.
Yeah, but this is, I think, where what we haven't talked about, the efficiency of a team today, is a good leader.
Yeah.
Okay. Because a good leader will never let this person have to work their way into this wall of people. They
talk these people themselves into inviting that person in.
Yes. And they explain to them why it's so important that we need a fresh perspective on everything. I will never forget. We did our first meeting when I was on the team. In a minivan driving from Fort Myers to Fort Lauderdale.
I love
it. We stayed in Miami that time, but either way, same place. And so we had to drive like 2.5 hours across the state. And we're in this minivan. I'm in the absolute back row.
Because you were new.
I was.
Oh my God.
I didn't get to sit near the front of the bus. So we're having this meeting, and I am just like, this is high level shit that I have never
You're like, what did I get myself into here?
I know. And it's like, I just felt so stupid. I felt so not good enough. I felt all these things. And our boss was like, we need you to participate. And I'm like, I feel like you're speaking a different language.
Yeah, like you're over my head right now.
Right. But she needed me to try because they needed another set of input, right?
Yes.
They've been doing things the way that they do them.
Yes.
And
We needed somebody to rock the boat.
Yeah. And just give a different idea. Even if it was a stupid idea, it still had 10% that was a good
Something
part of
That's
it.
right.
Good about it.
And so I remember specifically we were doing a stop, start, continue.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that was really good for our team because there was no pointing fingers, but it was like, we need to stop this. We need to start setting deadlines for every single thing we need turned in. We need to continue to have the team help hire new coaches or whatever it is. So it was so good. And I loved that every single time that we did it, every single like half a year. But it was, I don't even know what we should stop, or like, why are you asking me to participate?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, well, you don't know what you're talking about yet, so you sit over there. It's like, no, you need to participate because we need your input because you're new and have a new angle on this.
And I had that same sort of experience. My first meeting, I just had that moment of like, how did I trick them into giving me this job? And how am I going to keep this facade going?
Oh my God.
Because I can't even
I don't even understand this.
And then obviously, I'm sure you can agree that it didn't take long for you to be like, oh.
Yeah, you just have to train your brain to work with a specific team and know what's going on. But you have to, some people never would if the right leader didn't put them exactly where they needed to be and get the rest of the team's buy-in on, you need to know what she has to say. It's not just about what you guys think and hearing your own voices. It's like, we need to know what she thinks about this because she has a new perspective.
We had a leader that was really good at seeing when we would get really confident and get in the flow. And it was like, don't let your ego get too big. We need to bring somebody in here to like, like take you out of your own space because you're getting really comfortable right where you're at. Let's open this up a little bit. And it kept it fresh for us for sure.
I will say that in most team dynamics, and even in like my own marriage, my husband he's a very still, quiet person. I mean, he has his own personality and things, but like I am obviously the talker of the group.
Yeah.
So, but he's such a good listener. And the quiet people of the group are always the listeners. And they're the people that always have the most profound things to say because they've had time while everyone else is talking and like spitballing and saying all the ideas and throwing it out there on the table in a pile. They're like, really digesting things and they are looking at it from their own lens of that perspective. And they always have the most profound things to say. And so I love hearing from the quieter ones.
That was me.
Yeah.
I was going to say that was you, but before it was you, it was Misty.
Yeah. Yeah. She probably
it was never me.
Did even more with it because she was amazing.
Misty would just be like,
yeah, she's collecting it.
Like, what?
She's taking 10% from everybody. And she's, putting together the absolute best possible plan with
You're
the
like,
quietest
where'd
voice.
that come from? That was amazing. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see everybody kind of do their thing. And when you spend a lot of time with people in a team, you understand their tells. Like when they have something to say or when they're frustrated or things like that. So if you're a really good reader of people, it can give you a true pulse. Body language is fascinating, like to watch, especially in a team setting.
I'll uncross my arms.
Oh, now. Listen.
Why so on guard?
I'm just like, it's just, all of it is very scientific and fascinating to me. And I do, doing what I do, I end up needing to pay attention to a lot of things, because it tells me things, 93% of all communication is nonverbal. And so it tells me things, it tells me really what's happening versus what everyone is saying.
Oh yeah. We had someone on the team and once in a while she would just there and you could watch her just fume at the top of her head and
visible smoke.
Visible smoke. And the thing is that it just everything needed to come back around and calm back down and whatever. But it's like, you just have to, you could watch these things happen and it's huge. we had somebody else who wasn't on the team, but that we would do big team meetings too. And you would see them just shut completely down. And it's like, no, this is not the time to shut down. We've got to, maybe you be the listener then, and you gather all the information, or people who really wanted to be the one who spoke next. And sorry, not everyone gets to have their opinions out today, and we just have to work as a team.
That was the downside of having, to your point, all really strong-minded, outspoken, opinionated people. While we were all respectful of each other's opinions,
everybody's got to take their turn.
It's like you got to take your turn. And in those bigger team meetings, though, when we say bigger, like we're talking like 45, 50 people in a room that are all really loud, opinionated. Not everybody, but a big portion of those people were gonna be the talkers. And that's when you see this one fuming, and this one is shutting down, and this one, like, you start losing people. I mean, we would drop like flies. And then I can just remember like sitting over in the corner like, well, this isn't going well.
We hated those meetings. What are your
plans for the weekend? Like, let's have a side conversation, because that is a dumpster fire.
Or there's people in the meeting texting one another, and they're texting each other. I mean, oh my God.
The whole time.
That's the reason why, like, meetings should be short if you even need a meeting. Now they have this really cool capability of, and they've had it forever. I mean, let's be real. You can Loom your notes to a person. So you video record yourself, like, here's the update, here's everything you need to know, watch this video, blah, blah, blah. And it's done. And then you just pass it out to everyone. And then they can record a response. Like, it's pretty cool.
That's fun.
It's pretty cool to do, to implement technology inside of what you would normally be in a room to have a powwow.
But it's something that needed more than an email. But it's too much for
everybody's opinions.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you're a person who still works for a corporation and you're still involved in team meetings, and you're still, like, the rules of engagement are good for yourself to follow. And because, again, it just removes the emotional component of what's happening in the room. And so it really helps. It just really helps you kind of get re-energized about attending meetings when you can understand that that's really what it should be, or share the rules with your people.
Please share them, because I think,
especially from a leader's perspective,
it'll help you. Absolutely. It'll help you to just think about them, because it's all kind of a mindset thing. But if everyone on your team could get on board with them, how much more effective would you be to really brainstorm off of that 10%, and to not take things personally and really dig into that feedback? There's so many things, and the systems, obviously, when we've all been blamed for something that we could have just actually fixed a problem instead of spending all day with the blame game. So I hope that people take that and they take it back to their boss or their team lead or whoever it is, and say, this was very, very smart, because it is very smart. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Yeah, no problem.
So we want to we like Reddit, and so we find stories on Reddit and then we read them and we give advice, but we really want your advice on this one.
Oh my God, I can't wait to hear this.
Very interesting. We pulled one from the Am I the Asshole segment of Reddit.
That's our favorite page.
Oh my God. Where have I been? I'm living under a rock, you guys. Jeez.
They don't have that, or you haven't seen that? My TikTok is so full of Am I the Asshole stories. So that's why I love them so much. So, but she's going to read this one too.
Okay. So this one goes back to the conversation that we were having earlier about having coworkers being friends and what that dynamic looks like. So keep that in mind. Okay. So this asshole, or not asshole, says, I just left a job that I had for over 2 years. During that time, I had come to like many of my coworkers, but I didn't consider them to be friends, as in my opinions, friends are people that you hang out with outside of work or call and text out of the blue. On my last day of work, a former coworker of mine kept saying that they would miss me and kept referring to me as a friend. I reminded them that while I enjoyed their company at work, I don't really consider us to be friends. And they were confused because they thought we were. I reminded him that every time I asked him to hang out outside of work, he would say no and give me reasons that ranged from understandable to ones that were, well, obvious that he just didn't want to hang out with me. As soon as I realized that maybe we weren't going to be friends, I thought of him more as a colleague and only talked to him during work hours. I politely informed them that while they might see this as a friendship, I did not. I just saw us as coworkers. My coworker got quiet and I didn't continue the conversation. They then called me an asshole for making them upset. I was confused as I thought it was a cordial conversation, but am I the asshole for making my coworker upset that I didn't consider them a friend?
I love this. I would say basically this person renegotiated their friendship with them. There are so many levels of, varying degrees of what you would consider your friend. And I would agree to that. I would say that, first of all, whatever you consider a friendship is whatever you consider it. Just like how I clean my house might be different than how you clean your house. So
let's not say that you clean your house.
I mean, okay, the maids clean my house, okay?
I was about to say,
unbelievable.
She have a dirty house?
No, I would never say that. No, she puts out all of this content about the maids, their company that cleans her house, and they are hilarious and amazing.
So it's the same. It's like we all have, what that means to me is my description. Yeah. So I would consider friendships to be that of the same, like where we're hanging out outside of work, we're calling each other, we're doing stuff on the weekends, like that sort of thing. Not just at work, about work, right? Yeah. It's about like, I know you personally, I know your family, I know like those sorts of things. But then when the person said that they wanted to hang out with them and then the other guy said no.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the renegotiation right there. It's like, well, okay, I thought we were going to be friends outside of this, but we're not. You didn't want to. So I'm going to renegotiate my friendship there. I'm going to renegotiate the level of come together that we are. And and I feel like that's perfectly okay. And no, they're not the asshole.
I'm going to disagree. I think they're an asshole. And the reason I say that is not because they're wrong.
Okay.
You are totally fair in that this person did not behave as a friend would, in your opinion.
Right.
However, you're leaving and you had a good relationship, a good working relationship with this person. Why would you make a point to say, by the way, we were never friends?
True story.
Because they got their feelings hurt.
Right. Yes. And therefore you're being an asshole.
That's true.
Retaliating against
you got to read a person.
Yes.
You got to be able to read a room, know?
You just took the first opportunity that they gave you to be like, no, I'm not going to be your friend because you weren't my friend first. You can't come to my birthday party.
Here's what we don't know. Was that done out of spite? Because if it was done out of spite, then you're an asshole.
Yeah.
If it wasn't done out of spite, if you really are just like,
dumbfounded.
Like if you're really dumbfounded and you're like, I asked you if you want to be friends, you kept making excuses up. So I was like, okay, cool. We're not friends. We'll just talk at work and like, we'll be acquaintances. No problem. And then when I go to leave, you're like, oh, I'm really going to miss you. And you're like, what? Why? That's how I took it. And so that's interesting.
And maybe that's how it was meant. I don't know, but for me, I'm like, what did you hope to gain by putting them in their place?
100%. Now that's being an asshole.
Yeah, that's just pettiness. I have to
100%.
That's pettiness. So to me, I wouldn't have said anything because everyone has different levels of friendship, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know. I don't think it said if this was a female or a male, but let's say that this is a female, okay, and the guy is a male, because it did. I think it said he might not be allowed to hang out with women.
True story.
Yeah.
So he's like, I really enjoy this person at work,
but I have to keep it at an appropriate.
Yes, because I'm not allowed to just go out with any woman after work. Like that's respectful to his wife. They should have probably had a conversation if he had real reasons, because he or she on the other end of it is going, well, they had weird excuses that seemed like they really just didn't want to be friends with me.
Right.
But to me, I think some people also don't hang out with anybody, which I think that they did say in that story that they went out with other people.
This story was much longer than we have for the entire length of this podcast.
I see.
But it didn't give enough information. Like she cut out stuff that didn't really matter too much. I just I wouldn't have rocked a boat. I would have
There's just
said,
a
I know, I'll
Yeah.
miss you too. Bye. You
Yeah,
know, like, and then
right,
you never talk to them again.
exactly.
Yeah, I was
Now,
thinking
see, now that's what
I'll
it
miss
is
lunch
right there.
together.
Like the
Mhm.
perspective, the perspective of being like, if you're really like, if you're like, yeah, it was great getting to know you. What is that going to hurt?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because I'm sure there were moments of that, but
Mhm.
like actually stopping and taking time to be like, what do you mean? Why are you? We
Yeah,
weren't
so
friends.
it was petty.
Yeah,
They were
now
Our colleague.
that's what I call Petty Betty. Like,
Yeah.
who are we bringing Petty Betty
Yes.
out to play?
Mhm.
Like, because there's so much of that inside of office dynamics and things like that go down. And I have to, I make a joke of it because I'd be like, no, don't be bringing Petty Betty out to play. And then the people in the office will be like, okay, and it's how we joke about checking ourselves.
I love that you have a Petty Betty because at my house we have Pissy Polly.
Those are different
They're
people.
different people.
That's it. You have girls.
But we name them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have boys, so
Yeah.
it's got to be something else for
Yeah.
them.
It's funny.
I do have a question for you though, before we wrap up, because I want to know, you had mentioned about your corporate job, that you were not allowed to be friends with anybody. Okay. We
hit it so well. We were like,
yeah,
it's like espionage up in there.
Yes. So you weren't allowed. That was the company culture. You're not allowed. We were totally allowed. It was definitely something that was encouraged,
Yeah.
right? I couldn't come up with that word. It was encouraged. But then there came a point where it was like, we think you guys might be too close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is definitely friendship is good, but too close can have problems on a team? Or like, what's your thoughts on that scale of friendship to not friendship?
I certainly wouldn't discourage it. And I think in my environment, there was a fear around it because things would happen in the office based on who you were friends with. So like, for instance, one day I'm at someone's desk and I'm just standing there. It's like 7:10 a.m. early in the morning. The owner comes down the aisle that I'm in, and she's like, you. And she points to a girl and she goes, you started something online last night. And if you don't like working here, you're fired. And you three right here, 1, 2, 3, you're fired too because you're friends with her. And she actually said that out loud.
Oh,
and
everybody just needed to pack up and go.
Everyone was like,
crazy.
oh my God, we can't let her know that we like you. If we let her know we like you, I might get fired too. And I didn't even do anything. Like
everyone was guilty by association.
Yeah, 100%. And so it created this fear in our environment where hell no, we weren't going to say that we were friends with you.
It had to be every man for themselves.
It had to be. And so we literally would text one another on the phones, be like, I'll meet you down at the corner and we'll go together to go to lunch far away from here. Like it was the amount of like secrecy that occurred, which is not good. But I see
there had to be like a level of fun in that too, because you were getting away with
Lord
something.
have mercy, hope we were getting away with it. So in my environment, it was a fear mongering towards friendship that we just didn't do it. And we did not tell, like if you were seen walking together in the parking lot around the building, like during your break, you were colluding immediately. Yes. Smoking. You were colluding. And then she would pull in a person and be like, you're not allowed to speak to that person because they're this, they're that. And then they would like not talk to you.
And you had no idea
that
what
happened to me.
Yeah.
And it was like, why are you not talking to me? And they're like, I can't talk to you. I can't talk to you.
And they're probably tracing my text messages, so I can't even tell you.
Then they would call me after work and be like, I'm so sorry. I like the last week I have been such an asshole to you because I haven't been able to talk to you because Lisa pulled me in, or so-and-so pulled me in your office and said that I couldn't talk to you. And if they saw me talking to you, that I was going to, and I'm just like, what?
You know what? Just don't talk to me.
This is crazy. But to your point, when you're friends and you're allowed to be friends, those walls come down really far.
Yeah.
If there even is a wall. And then what happens is you start talking to each other as like your sisters and you start being like, listen,
and we bicker. Like
you
sisters.
bicker. And so there is definitely a balance. And you have to have a really good leader that can know that about you and pull the two of you in and say, hey, listen, I know that you guys love each other so much, but like the bickering, like we can't have that. So this is a work environment. Like you just have to check people.
Yeah.
And then I think you're fine. Why does somebody want to work in an environment where they're like, don't look at me? Don't talk to me.
Yeah, that's not okay. That's too much of that extreme.
Whoa.
But I think
The other was
where we ran into, it was like, oh my gosh, you guys are too close. It would be like really hard to give somebody criticism or feedback.
Yeah.
But constructive criticism is what I meant by that.
Yeah.
That you knew was like a really tender spot for them.
Yeah.
It was like,
be like, oh, this is going to be so hard.
And I don't want to, because I don't want to hurt you.
Yeah.
And in order to protect your feelings, I'm actually not telling you
just
things
avoid
that
it.
you need to know about yourself or about work that you did or about an interaction or whatever, because I love you so much. I don't want to see you hurt.
Yeah. There's two sides to that for sure. I mean, you have to be able to, I have a really amazing friend group and we're so vulnerable with each other. And like, they totally call me on my shit, but I totally call them on theirs.
Yeah.
And it's really wild when you can have that kind of a relationship with a person where you can be like, okay, listen, this is really hard for me to say. You just preface it. You're like, I don't even know how to tell you this because I know it's a soft spot for you. It's really how you have the conversation, but you know, you got to have it. And so if you're in that situation where you need to just be able to speak openly and freely to someone that you care about, that's how you start it.
Yeah. You just care about them.
Yes. Listen, I care about you.
I hold your hands while I tell you this. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm so proud of you. And like, here are the things that I've been withholding. So there's, when we give feedback, there's positive withholds and negative withholds. A negative withhold is saying that you were hurt or something bad. And a positive withhold is like, wow, I'm really so proud of you. Like, I can't believe you did that. That was amazing. Like, we don't often tell people our positive withholds. And I think that we do our relationship a disservice, especially in a working environment when we're not giving that positive information back to someone we care about.
Assume they know because they know we love them. And that's not fair.
Yes. It's just like, oh, well, they know I love them, or they know I'm proud of them, or they know that I think they're amazing. It's still,
you have to reinforce that they know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
and that they remember in the moment, because they might take it personally and they need the reminder. This was an amazing conversation. I think this will definitely be our longest podcast so far, but I knew that would happen with a guest because there's so much more to say. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of
course.
Can you
please tell people where to follow you on socials and where they can find you?
Absolutely. So I have my website, which is just, hey, it's Bre K, BREK.com. And then I'm on Instagram, hey, it's Bre K. And then I'm on TikTok, let's be work besties.
Yes.
So,
and our listeners, I think they need as many work besties as possible.
Yes.
So we always tell them we'll be their work besties too, so that they're not alone. Yes. So Bre will be your work bestie too. Thank you for joining us. And as always, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Corporate Burnouts Podcast, and on TikTok at the Corporate Burnouts and the Corporate Burnouts.com. I know I need to write this down and read it. And we still want to hear your secrets, because we want to tell your corporate secrets. Like, we would have loved your stuff. I would have been like, what? I can't believe that they're doing this. I
was saving it.
Yes, we can keep going on Reddit. That's fine. But we'd really rather share your stuff. So
yes, share us your secrets. On our website, there's a secrets tab that you can put them in there. So,
I love that.
Yes.
Thanks for having me, guys. I had a great time.
It was so great to meet
love
you.
it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.